My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 46 years old, and for the past 20 years I've worked as a structural engineer here in Denver, Colorado. I've always been the kind of man who believes in building things that last. Solid foundations, strong materials, careful planning. That's how I approached my career, and that's how I thought I'd built my family. My wife Clara is 44. We've been married for 22 years. Our daughter Lily just turned 18 and graduated from high school this past May. Our son Noah is 14, starting his freshman year at Denver North High School this fall. For over 2 decades, I thought we had something unbreakable. A home built on trust, respect, and mutual commitment. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in late July 2025 when my world came crashing down. I'd left the office early to grab some blueprints I'd forgotten at home. Nothing unusual about that. I've been doing this job long enough to know that forgotten documents happen to everyone. I pulled into our driveway around 10:30 a.m., expecting the house to be empty. Clara usually ran errands on Tuesday mornings, and the kids wouldn't be home for hours. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video, and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. I walked through the front door and heard the shower running upstairs. Clara must have been getting ready for her day. I headed to my home office to grab the blueprints when I noticed her phone charging on the nightstand in our bedroom. The screen was still lit up, showing her text messages. She must have been using it right before getting in the shower, and it hadn't locked yet. She always kept the auto lock set to 5 minutes because she found it annoying to keep unlocking it around the house. That's when I saw the name at the top of the conversation. Ryan Callahan. Ryan Callahan. My daughter's boyfriend. The 19-year-old kid who'd been coming to our house for family dinners every Sunday for the past 8 months. The same kid who called me sir and shook my hand with what I thought was genuine respect. The messages were there, clear as day, explicit, graphic. Things no father should ever read about his daughter's boyfriend. But these weren't messages to Lily. They were to my wife. My hands shook as I scrolled through the conversation. Ryan describing what he wanted to do to Clara. Clara responding with equal enthusiasm. Planning secret meetings. Laughing about me. Actually laughing about the husband and father who worked 60-hour weeks to provide for this family. The shower was still running. Clara had no idea I was home. I stood there in our bedroom, reading conversations that detailed months of betrayal. Not just adultery. Something far worse. My wife was sleeping with our teenage daughter's first love. She was destroying our child's innocence for her own sick gratification. I memorized what I could, took mental notes of dates and times, then put the phone back exactly where I found it. I grabbed my blueprints. I walked out of that house without making a sound. But I wasn't the same man who'd walked in 20 minutes earlier. That man had trusted blindly. This man would never trust again without verification. The drive back to the office was a blur. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 30 minutes, trying to process what I'd discovered. Part of me wanted to storm back home and confront Clara immediately. Part of me wanted to call Lily and warn her about the monster she was dating. But the engineer in me, the part of my brain that solves complex structural problems, told me to slow down. Evidence first, strategy second, action third. That afternoon I acted like nothing had happened. I came home at my usual time. I kissed Clara on the cheek when she greeted me at the door. I asked Noah about his summer reading assignments. I made small talk during dinner, but every word felt like glass in my throat. Clara seemed perfectly normal, cheerful even. She asked about my day, laughed at Noah's jokes, and made plans for the weekend. The woman sitting across from me at our dinner table was a complete stranger, a stranger who was methodically destroying our family for her own perverse pleasure. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I made my decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. I would do what I do best. I would build. But this time, I wouldn't be building a home or a bridge or a foundation. I would be building the most devastating, methodical, airtight case of betrayal that had ever been documented. Clara Mercer had no idea what kind of man she'd decided to betray. The next morning, I started building my case. 20 years of engineering had taught me that every structure needs a solid foundation, and evidence would be mine. I couldn't rely on emotions or assumptions. I needed facts, documentation, and irrefutable proof. My first call was to Patricia Mercer, my mother. At 71, she's sharper than most people half her age and has always been my most trusted advisor. I drove to her house in Lakewood that Wednesday evening. "Danny, you look terrible," she said the moment I walked through her door. "What's wrong?" I told her everything, every detail, every message I'd seen. Mom listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with each word. "What do you need from me?" she asked when I finished. "I need to document our assets properly. Make sure everything is accounted for and that I have records of what we built together before Clara tries to claim things that aren't rightfully hers." Mom nodded. "Smart thinking. But Danny, you need professional help with this. You can't handle something this complicated alone." She was right. The next day, I contacted Marcus Webb, a private investigator I'd worked with on a construction fraud case 2 years earlier. Marcus was former Denver PD, methodical and discreet. Exactly what I needed. We met at a coffee shop on South Broadway on Friday afternoon. I explained the situation and described the messages I'd seen on Clara's phone. "This is messy, Daniel," Marcus said after hearing my story. "If what you're telling me is accurate, your wife and this kid aren't just having an affair. They're actively mocking you. That level of contempt goes beyond typical adultery." "How long do you need to build a comprehensive case?" I asked. "Give me 4 weeks, maybe 5. I'll document everything. Where they meet, how often, what they say to each other. By the time I'm done, you'll have enough evidence to prove the affair beyond any doubt." 4 weeks. I could maintain this facade for 4 weeks. Meanwhile, life at home continued as if nothing had changed. Clara kept up her routine perfectly. Tuesday and Thursday mornings became her yoga classes, according to the calendar on our refrigerator. She'd leave the house at 9 a.m. and return by noon, refreshed and glowing. Ryan still came to Sunday dinners. He still called me sir and helped clear the table. He still held hands with Lily on our couch while we watched movies. To anyone watching, he seemed like the perfect, respectful boyfriend. But now that I knew the truth, I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way Clara would linger in conversations with him just a beat too long. How she'd find excuses to be in the kitchen when he visited. Always dressed more carefully than usual. The occasional glance between them that lasted just a fraction too long before one of them would look away. Small things. Subtle things. The kind of details that seemed innocent until you understood what they really meant. They thought they were being clever, keeping their interactions minimal and professional in front of the family. But once you know what to look for, the signs become obvious. A shared smile that lasted too long. The way they both seemed to time their movements to avoid being in the same room together for too long. Probably to avoid suspicion, but it actually made their connection more noticeable to someone who was watching for it. During those 4 weeks, I also consulted with Janet Morrison, one of Denver's most experienced divorce attorneys. Janet had a reputation for protecting her clients' interests and handling complex marital dissolution cases. "Colorado is a no-fault divorce state," she explained during our consultation. "But adultery can still impact asset division and custody arrangements, especially when there's evidence of deception about marital finances or emotional damage to the children." "What about the age difference?" I asked. "Ryan is 19, but he was 18 when this started, based on what I observed." "That complicates things emotionally, but legally he's an adult," Janet admitted. "However, the psychological damage to your daughter could be significant. A good family court judge will consider that when making custody and support decisions." I retained Janet and had her begin preparing for what would likely be a lengthy divorce process. Everything would be ready to file the moment Marcus completed his investigation. The hardest part was watching Lily. My beautiful, intelligent daughter was completely in love with Ryan. She talked about him constantly, made plans for their future, even mentioned how she hoped they'd get married someday. Every conversation was like a knife to my heart because I knew what was coming. I knew that when the truth came out, it wouldn't just destroy my marriage. It would shatter my daughter's first experience with love. But I couldn't warn her. Not yet. If Lily confronted Ryan or became suspicious, it might alert Clara that I was onto them. I had to let my daughter continue living in this lie until I had everything I needed to expose it properly. Noah, thankfully, seemed oblivious to the entire situation. At 14, he was more concerned with starting high school and adjusting to being a freshman at Denver North. His innocence was a small blessing in this nightmare. Marcus called me on a Thursday afternoon in late August. "I've got solid evidence," he said. "Can you meet me tomorrow morning?" "Absolutely." "What did you find?" "Enough to prove the affair conclusively. They've been meeting at the Marriott on 17th Street every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 10 weeks. I've got photos, audio recordings from public spaces, credit card records. But Daniel, there's something else you need to know." My stomach dropped. "What?" "From what I've overheard, they're getting sloppy, more confident. I think they're planning to make some kind of move soon, though I'm not sure exactly what." "Tomorrow morning," I said. "Show me everything." Marcus Webb spread the evidence across the conference table at his office like he was laying out blueprints for a demolition project. Photos, audio transcripts, credit card statements, hotel receipts, phone records. 4 weeks of professional surveillance had produced a devastating portrait of betrayal. "They meet every Tuesday and Thursday at the Marriott," Marcus began, pointing to time-stamped photographs. "Always room 1247. Clara checks in at 9:15 a.m. using a credit card I discovered she opened recently. Ryan arrives 15 minutes later through the parking garage. The photos were crystal clear. Clara walking into the hotel lobby in a red dress I'd never seen before. Ryan following the same path, baseball cap pulled low. Both of them smiling like they were getting away with the crime of the century. "But the real evidence is in these audio recordings," Marcus continued, pressing play on a digital recorder. The recordings were from public areas of the hotel where they had no expectation of privacy. Clara's voice filled the room. "Danny's working late again tonight. He's so predictable. Same routine for 20 years. Ryan's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Does he suspect anything?" "Not a thing. He thinks I'm at yoga class. Poor man is so trusting." Their casual dismissal made my stomach turn. Marcus fast-forwarded to another recording. "I can't keep lying to Lily much longer," Ryan was saying. "She keeps talking about our future together." Clara's response chilled me. "We'll figure something out. Maybe it's time she learned that life doesn't always go according to plan." I had to stop the recording. The casual cruelty was beyond anything I'd imagined. "There's more," Marcus said quietly. "Based on their conversations, I think they're planning something for this weekend. They've mentioned making changes and not having to sneak around much longer." "This weekend," I repeated. "Daniel, there's something else." Marcus handed me financial documents. "I've been tracking some unusual activity. Clara's been moving money around, small amounts but consistent. She's building up that secret account." I studied the papers. She'd been skimming from our household budget for months, probably planning for whatever future she imagined with Ryan. I called Janet Morrison from Marcus's office. "I need to file the divorce papers next week. I can't wait any longer." "What's the rush?" Janet asked. "Based on the evidence, they're planning to make some kind of move soon. I need to get ahead of this. I'll have everything ready by Monday. Daniel, I have to warn you. This is going to be a long process. Complex divorces like this, especially with custody issues and financial complications, typically take 8 to 12 months to resolve." "I understand. I just need to protect my children and ensure Clara doesn't get rewarded for her betrayal." That weekend, I made my preparations. I documented all of our assets, opened individual bank accounts, and prepared to separate our finances legally and properly. Most importantly, I rehearsed what I would say to my children when the time came. The confrontation happened on a Sunday evening in early September. I'd been watching Clara and Ryan during our family dinner, seeing their stolen glances and hidden smiles, while Lily held his hand, completely oblivious to the betrayal happening right in front of her. After Ryan left, I asked everyone to stay in the living room. "I have something difficult to tell you all," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I've discovered that your mother has been unfaithful to our marriage." Clara's face went pale, but she immediately went on the offensive. Danny, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. With Ryan Callahan, I continued, looking at Lily with as much compassion as I could muster. I have evidence that they've been meeting secretly for months. The silence that followed was deafening. Lily's face went through a series of emotions, confusion, disbelief, then dawning horror as the pieces fell into place. That's impossible, Clara said, but her voice lacked conviction. You're mistaken. You're seeing things that aren't there. I pulled out a folder with some of Marcus's evidence, the hotel receipts, the photos of them entering the building. I hired a private investigator. The evidence is conclusive. Lily looked at the photos and burst into tears. Noah sat frozen, trying to process what he was hearing. Clara looked at the evidence and I watched her realize that denial was no longer an option. Lily, I'm so sorry you had to learn about this, I said gently. But I couldn't let you continue being deceived. My daughter ran from the room sobbing. Noah followed her, wanting to comfort his sister. Clara and I were left alone. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough to get the evidence I needed. Clara, I'm filing for divorce. I've already retained an attorney. She was quiet for a long moment, then looked up at me with something that might have been regret. Danny, this wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Were you planning to leave me for a 19-year-old? Destroy our daughter's relationship and break up our family for some fantasy? Clara didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. The next few days were a blur of legal paperwork, difficult conversations with the children, and watching my family reorganize itself around this new reality. Ryan, when confronted by the evidence, broke down completely. The confident young man who'd been playing both sides crumbled when faced with real consequences. He called me, his voice shaking. Mr. Mercer, I never meant for it to go this far. Clara, she made it seem like your marriage was already over. I don't know what I thought. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too, I replied. Sleep with my wife and date my daughter simultaneously. I know how it looks, but it wasn't like that. It started as just, I don't know. But then it got complicated, and I didn't know how to stop it. Ryan's version painted him as more of a confused young man who got in over his head rather than a calculating predator. That didn't excuse his actions, but it made more psychological sense than the master manipulator I'd initially imagined. Within a week, Ryan had ended things with both Clara and Lily, though for different reasons. He told Lily he was too immature for a serious relationship, a crushing blow, but probably kinder than the full truth. He simply stopped responding to Clara entirely, effectively ghosting her. The divorce process began in earnest in October 2025. True to Janet's prediction, it was slow and complicated. Clara initially tried to claim she deserved half of everything, including assets I'd built up over 20 years before we even met Ryan. But the evidence of her deception and the secret account she'd been building undermined her credibility. I wasn't trying to steal from you, she claimed during one of our mediation sessions. I was just protecting myself. By lying and cheating and planning to leave with a teenager? Janet responded sharply. Mrs. Mercer, your actions speak louder than your explanations. The process dragged on through the winter and into spring 2026. Clara fought for more alimony, more property, more time with the children. But both Lily and Noah, when given the choice, decided they wanted to live primarily with me. The judge, after hearing testimony about the affair's impact on the family, was not particularly sympathetic to Clara's financial demands. During this time, both children began healing in their own ways. Lily started therapy with Dr. Sarah Martinez, a counselor who specialized in helping young adults process betrayal and family trauma. The hardest part isn't that Mom cheated, Lily told me one evening in February 2026. It's that she was willing to destroy my first relationship to do it. I keep wondering if I can ever trust anyone again. You can, I assured her. But you've learned something valuable, that trust should be earned and verified, not given blindly. Noah, being younger, seemed to bounce back more quickly, though he had his moments of anger and confusion. Why couldn't she just get divorced first if she was so unhappy? He asked me one day. I think your mother got caught up in the excitement of sneaking around, I told him honestly. Some people make very poor choices when they're looking for something to make them feel young again. The final divorce decree was signed in June 2026, almost a year after I first discovered the affair. Clara received minimal alimony, no claim to the investment properties we'd built during our marriage, and limited custody rights. The judge noted that her actions had caused significant emotional harm to the minor children, and that this influenced his decisions about support and custody. By the summer of 2026, we'd settled into our new routine. Lily had been accepted to Colorado State University and was planning to study engineering like her father. Noah had successfully completed his freshman year of high school and made the JV basketball team. Clara moved to a small apartment in Aurora and found work as the administrative assistant at a medical office. Ryan had transferred to a university in Arizona, and as far as I knew, they never spoke again after that initial breakup. I began dating again in late 2026, though cautiously. I met Rebecca, a 42-year-old widow who worked as a nurse at Denver Health. She'd lost her husband to cancer 3 years earlier and understood the importance of honesty and commitment in relationships. I can't imagine betraying someone I loved like that, she said when I eventually told her about Clara and Ryan. Especially involving your own daughter, that's just evil. One evening in early 2027, almost 2 years after the initial discovery, Lily and I were working on her college application essays. "Dad," she said, looking up from her laptop, "can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you regret not confronting Mom right away, like the day you found out?" I considered her question carefully. "No, I don't regret it. If I'd acted emotionally, if I'd just exploded with anger, it might have felt good in the moment. But it wouldn't have protected you and Noah. It wouldn't have ensured that the truth came out properly, or that your mother faced real consequences for her choices. So the waiting was strategic? The waiting was protective. I needed evidence, not just emotions. I needed to make sure that when everything came out, it would be on our terms, not theirs. Lily nodded thoughtfully. I think I understand. You were building a case like you build structures, carefully with the right materials so it wouldn't fall down. Exactly. And Lily, the most important thing I built was time. Time for me to process what had happened, time to gather evidence, and time to plan how to minimize the damage to you and your brother. Today, in September 2027, 3 years after that terrible discovery, I can honestly say that life is better than it was before. Not because I enjoyed destroying my marriage, but because removing the dishonesty and betrayal allowed us to build something stronger. Clara occasionally reaches out. Birthday cards that I don't open. Requests to talk about the family that I ignore. Some people might call that cold, but I call it protective. She showed me who she really was when she thought no one was watching. I choose to believe her. My children are thriving. Lily is excelling in her engineering program and has started dating someone new, a young man who treats her with respect and has never met her mother. Noah is now a confident junior in high school, with a solid group of friends and no interest in his mother's attempts to reconnect. I'm in a committed relationship with Rebecca, and we're talking about marriage. But this time, I'm building on a foundation of proven trustworthiness rather than blind faith. Sometimes people ask me if I got revenge on Clara. I don't think I did. I think I simply documented her choices and let the natural consequences unfold. She betrayed her family's trust, and she lost her family. She tried to steal assets she hadn't earned, and she lost financial security. She chose a teenager over her husband, and the teenager abandoned her. I didn't destroy Clara Mercer. She destroyed herself. I just refused to go down with her. In engineering, we have a saying, the structure is only as strong as its weakest component. For 22 years, I thought Clara was a load-bearing wall. It turns out she was just decorative trim, beautiful to look at, but not actually holding anything together. Once I realized that and reinforced the real supports, my relationship with my children, my financial stability, my personal integrity, the whole structure became much more solid. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, Please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.